So it's been a few weeks since the new season dropped, and overall, the changes that the developers made seem to have been accepted and well liked by a majority of the Marvel Rivals community. But as I've been playing more ranked games, I've noticed something strange. My teammates do not want to play support, and so much more often than previous seasons, I found myself flexing to support just so that we can have two healers. And I'm sure that many of you have noticed this as well, so where did all the support players go? Well, it turns out that there is an ongoing trend deemed the support strike, and as silly as that sounds, yeah, that's right, the support players have unionized and are refusing to play support. So why are all the supports refusing to heal their team? Well, it honestly comes down to many different reasons, but let's break down what I think are the two main reasons why the support strike is happening, and afterwards I will show you why the support players are somewhat justified. Let's talk about the first reason why the support strike is happening, which is that support players get the least amount of respect within the community. There are also so many notable content creators that constantly shit on supports, like Necros, who is the most notable, for example, who literally said that anyone playing the support role is an idiot.
I hate support players because they are literally allergic to good takes. They're just morons. They're idiots, and I hate them. I hate them. They never have any good takes.
Now, this combined with constant blame in competitive games from DPS or tank teammates is obviously going to piss off the support players. Supports will genuinely get so much more flack in-game than other roles, especially if they aren't doing well, because their role, in my opinion, is the easiest to execute on and the most mechanically simple. But at the same time, people should still be allowed to have bad games without constantly getting flamed. This is totally anecdotal, by the way, but in my experience, I've run into this many times as well. Even though I'm not myself a support player, my duo, who is a top 500 support player and ex-top 10 Overwatch support player, gets flamed constantly for the craziest things while on support. And to his credit, he will be playing really well and sometimes won't even make a mistake and will just get randomly flamed by one of our teammates. I think the main reason why DPS and tank players will flame supports out of the blue like this is because the support role, like I said earlier, is not mechanically challenging. So in their mind, they're thinking that if you manage to mess up on support, you have to be brain dead or something. And on top of this, they think that because support requires very little mechanical skill, that they are all boosted to their ranks. Now, what many of these people are forgetting is that while support may have a very low skill floor, it also has the lowest skill ceiling. In other words, while supports are easy to play and execute on, they don't have high carry potential or impact. So for supports, there are going to be so many more unwinnable games, whereas on DPS or tank, you could argue that those quote unwinnable games could be winnable. I go further in depth with this idea in my video on why you are losing your ranked games. I'll link it below and I'll put a little tag above for you guys if you're interested. Let's move on to the next reason why support players are pissed off: the performance-based competitive system changes. This system is supposed to reward and take away more or less elo to players who, well, play better. This on paper sounds like a great change, however the issue arises with the implementation. Essentially, the way that the performance-based system calculates elo given or taken from a player depends on their raw stats. And because support players typically only farm healing and most times very little damage and damage blocked, more often than not, the system is going to straight scam them. And win or loss, on average, a support player will gain less on a win and lose more on a loss than a DPS or a tank player. For example, my duo and I went on a 14-game winning streak. I was on DPS and he was on support most games, and on average, I gained 8 more points than he did per game. And honestly, that kind of discrepancy in elo gain, it just straight up feels unfair. Support players are already taking on a thankless job, and now they're gaining less and losing more elo regardless of how well they played. Yeah, I would be frustrated too. And this is the main reason why I think that support players are justified in how they are feeling. How unfair is it that the system that Marvel built simply rewards stat farming characters? Genuinely, with how this system works right now, there is no good reason to play support. You'd be so much better off playing heroes like Squirrel Girl or Moon Knight and farming insane damage numbers. Now, with this being said, I do think it is a little silly that supports are going on strike, as I do agree with the idea that support is the easiest role to play and execute on. If you disagree with this, man, you gotta stop smoking that galaxy gas and lock in. Half the supports don't even require you to aim and get massive value from simply timing the press of a button, like Adam Warlock Soulbond or Loki Lamp. I think that supports need to dial it back a little and realize the amount of effort required to play well on support versus to play well on DPS or tank is not even comparable, both mechanically and game sense wise. Tanks and DPS are the more difficult role. Supports all have very similar and streamlined playstyles, maybe barring Jeff. I think that a lot of support players have egos that are clashing with DPS players specifically, because DPS players know this fact that support is nowhere near as challenging to perform on. And this is how I feel to some degree. It's just astonishing to me that a Rocket or Cloak player can have a massive ego and shit talk me while they are also simultaneously playing the easiest character to ever be created in the hero shooter game genre. Now, this isn't totally to dog on supports. I think that in general, DPS players need to chill out and are probably causing a lot of the issue by flaming support players. I'd say ultimately, the blame doesn't just go on to people who play support, tank, or DPS, but rather people who are constantly flaming each other in team chat. And also to streamers and content creators like Necros, who are constantly shit-talking the entire support community. With all this being said, gentlemen, I am a little tired of having to flex to support, so why don't all of you guys watching go to a support player you know and send them a nice little thank you message. As I said earlier, supports do get dogged on the most out of any role, so let's show them some love so that we can move past this silly little drama.
I tell people, look, you may not be a union member, you better thank a union member.
If you guys made it here, I really do appreciate it. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe. Any of those choices really helps me out in the video a lot. Also, I do respond to every comment, so if you disagree with anything that I said, please let me know. P.S. Mercy players are boosted. Peace out, gentlemen.